Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Enrique Alcaraz. I am an economist graduated in the University of La Sorbonne in Paris, and in this video we're going to travel back 3700 years ago to hear and to learn from the richest man in Babylon. Once said that, let's go to it.
Welcome to Babylon. My name is Arkad, and today you will see that achieving abundance does not require a high initial salary or a family inheritance. I was born with very little, and for many years I lived hand to mouth, earning only a few coins by copying clay tablets for a noble. Each night I went to sleep wondering the same thing. If I work as hard as anyone else, why can't I get ahead financially? Back in those days, Babylon was a bustling center of commerce and opportunity. I watched with admiration as certain merchants and artisans seemed to generate wealth effortlessly. What was their secret? I asked myself. Were they born with a special talent? Did they have a divine gift? The truth was much simpler. They followed unbreakable principles regarding money, and once I decided to learn from them, these principles changed my life, allowing me to become the richest man in Babylon. Today, I want to share them with you so you too can break free from poverty and forge your own prosperity. Let's start at the beginning. I remember I was very young when one of my mentors told me, "Arkad, from every 10 coins that enter your purse, take one and save it for yourself before paying any debt or bill." At first, I was doubtful. How could I save even 1 coin if I barely had enough to live on? But when I tried it, I was amazed. Separating that 10% didn't leave me destitute. Instead, it forced me to be more efficient with the remaining 9/10. Over time, that one saved coin started to accumulate and formed my very first little capital. This capital became the foundation of my investments. So, my first piece of advice is clear. Pay yourself first. Later, as I began to accumulate a bit more wealth, I surrounded myself with people who were neither rich nor poor. They were stuck in the middle because they allowed debts to devour their income. In Babylon, many would borrow money just to show off luxurious chariots, expensive clothing, or grand feasts. Eventually, they became slaves to their own debts. I recall observing a neighbor who would buy extravagant spices and silks, believing they were essential to show his status in the marketplace. Yet he constantly complained about debts. By simplifying his lifestyle, wearing simpler clothes and hosting smaller gatherings, he discovered how much money he could actually save. Thus, my second piece of advice today is control your expenses and avoid unnecessary luxuries. For a man who spent most of his life earning a modest salary, the moment I discovered that my coins could work while I rested was life-changing. I often use the example of a farmer named Nomasir, who later became a friend. He had small plots of land that he worked tirelessly. One day, he decided to invest his modest savings into an additional piece of farmland, and he employed a young family to help cultivate it. His initial coins multiplied as the farm produced crops he could sell in the busy markets along the city walls. That farm financed the purchase of a second piece of land, and then a third. So, my third piece of advice is, make your money work for you. It wouldn't be honest to tell you that just saving 10% and controlling my expenses were enough to become wealthy. The real key was knowledge and wisdom. I realized that if I was going to invest and make my coins work for me, I needed to surround myself with people who were already doing so successfully. Thus, I began to ask questions, to listen, to read, and at times even to pay small fees in exchange for valuable lessons or mentorship. Do you know what I avoided? Taking advice from people who, though well-intentioned, had no real financial success themselves. Why listen to the opinion of someone who never invested successfully or never invested at all? That would only waste my time and money. Every lesson I acquired helped me make fewer mistakes and spot more opportunities. Thus, my fourth piece of advice is invest in your financial education. I saw how many of my fellow citizens lamented letting opportunities slip through their fingers. I learned that in business, good fortune usually smiles on those who make decisions promptly and with clear information. This doesn't mean jumping in blindly. You must investigate enough to understand the risk and the potential reward. If you see the potential is good and the risks are reasonable, act. One of the best examples I recall was during the expansion of Babylon's city walls. Some of my acquaintances noticed how laborers were moving to certain areas, sparking the growth of new markets. While some waited in doubt, others bought land or opened shops in those areas. Very quickly, those who took action profited as the population grew. There are many who keep waiting and miss out while others reap the rewards. That is why my fifth piece of advice is, never let opportunities pass you by. I have seen up close how people ruin themselves buying things that generate only expenses. Conversely, those who focus on acquiring assets that produce more income than they cost will prosper. A friend of mine once craved a chariot adorned with gold. Yes, it was splendid, but very expensive to maintain and offered no real financial return. Before long, he had to sell it to pay off debts. On the other hand, I knew an artisan who purchased a simpler chariot, then rented it out to merchants who needed to transport goods. In a year's time, he earned enough to buy a second chariot. That was how he built his fortune, little by little. Learn this difference. An asset puts money into your pocket while a liability takes money out of your pocket. Therefore, my sixth piece of advice is, learn to distinguish between assets and liabilities. Finally, there is never any shortage of charlatans who promise easy riches. In my time, some claimed to have secret routes for bringing in gems at no cost, or presented business plans that were far too good to be true. Many, blinded by greed, fell into their traps and lost everything. That is why my seventh piece of advice is simple. Keep your eyes open and your mind awake. Investigate thoroughly. Do not place blind trust in anyone who cannot provide solid results. When in doubt, consult with someone who truly understands that field. Not even I, the richest man in Babylon, give advice in an area outside my expertise. Everyone should speak only of what they know, and you, as an investor, must learn to filter the information you receive. The 7 teachings that lifted me from poverty to wealth are: pay yourself first, control your expenses, make your money, work for you, educate yourself financially, never let opportunities pass you by, distinguish between assets and liabilities, avoid bad or uninformed advice. There is no mystery, no magic, not even an extraordinary stroke of luck. There is, however, patience, discipline, and the unwavering decision to learn from every step you take. That is how true financial freedom is forged here in ancient Babylon, and how you can forge it in your own time as well. May these lessons guide you to build your own fortune, just as they guided me.
And those were the 7 teachings of Arkad, the richest man in Babylon. If you enjoyed this video, I encourage you to subscribe and give it a like. Also share it with your friends so that they can know what the book of The Richest Man in Babylon talks about and the 7 principles that everybody should follow with their money. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!